Jorge Gonzalez. I'm the Dean of the College, and I am really glad that you came here today. Today we're having the third panel talking about the K through 12 educational system and what kind of role liberal arts college should play in such a system, and specifically what kind of role Occidental College can play in that system. And the first panel that we had faculty members from 3 liberal arts colleges. The second panel that we had, organized by the Education Department, has some faculty members and some teachers and some administrators. And today, this panel was organized by ALOED, and I really want to thank ALOED for putting this together, for bringing you here, and for the participation in this process. What I'm going to do today is just simply introduce the person that's going to direct the panel, and then I will step aside to let them talk about the future of education. So Anna Tam is here. She's a graduate of Occidental from 1986. She's former ALOED president, and she very kindly agreed to lead this panel. She's a teacher specialist at Glendale Unified School District, and we are thrilled that she's here with us. Thanks, Anna.
Hopefully can we hear in the back? Yes, good. All right, we are very excited, and I hope that you felt the energy in the room tonight. If you've been to other panels, we are very excited that so many of you were able to come after work, after a long day, to be here and to support our work. As the Dean said, I'm very proud to have gone to school at Occidental. I went for my undergraduate, my graduate program, my teacher credential. I've been a student member of ALOED, and then stayed with the board for a while and served previously as president. I've also been part of the Teacher Education Advisory Board. So I'm very, very committed to the quality of education that we receive at this college, as well as the wonderful work done in their teacher education, teacher preparation program. As you know, ALOED has worked extremely hard. For the past year and a half, they've been researching what is it that the future holds for education. And in their field of education, we know these are scary but very exciting times. We're at a point where we know something is definitely changing, because the world is changing and the way we need to respond also needs to change. So these are exciting times, and we're hopeful that Occidental will continue to play a role in helping to lead that and be innovators in leading that change that needs to happen. So they've looked at what are these projected needs, what are the skills and qualities that we hear over and over make a difference for excellence in teacher quality. And also thinking about what role can Occidental play in fostering these skills and preparing excellent teachers. So they've worked very hard in looking at what does it take to be a teacher leader. They've looked at other teacher preparation programs. They've talked to education professors, administrators, alumni in the field, and they've worked really hard in developing a proposal of saying, here are, based on what our hard work, this is some of the ideas that we think need to be embodied in any reinstatement of the program. And so just so you know, the purpose of this panel is not to review that proposal. I mean, it's wonderful information, and we do encourage you. You have access to that. If those of you that are on Facebook can look up ALOED and find that information. There's also a blog that has that information, which is tigersteach.wordpress.com. So you can read that proposal. But again, I wanted to clarify that this panel is not to review that proposal. Instead, as the title suggests, it's Envisioning Excellence in Education, Occidental and 21st Century Schools. And both the president and the dean of the college have expressed the college's willingness to consider reinstatement of a teacher credentialing program, but one that is reinvigorated, innovative, and a world-class model of excellence. And making sure that the teachers that would be prepared would be well prepared to lead in this rapidly changing world. So we know the reason for these panels is they want to gather this information to hopefully move the program forward. In this panel, what we've asked our wonderful people that have volunteered, and we'll soon introduce them, is looking at their own experiences, and they'll represent different perspectives. What is their vision of the future of education, and what do they see as excellence in teaching in that future, and hopefully make some suggestions of what role Occidental might be able to play in that. So just so you know the panel process, we've asked each member to speak for about 10 minutes. Now they can easily do the whole session because they have such wonderful information, and you may have a specific attachment to one person and want more information. But our goal again is this panel is to give us different perspectives of where they see education going. And then at the end, we're going to have a few minutes to ask questions. And those questions, again, we're hoping is going to help move the conversation forward. So even though you might have a personal information about something said, okay, that one we hope that you might make personal contact with and get that. As far as thinking, this is a group discussion and looking at, again, what is it that we need to do to promote that excellence in education. I do want, before we get further, if the board members would just raise their hand or stand up. So if you look around, in case there are questions or information you'd like at the end, make sure you make contact with them. They will be glad to share your input, and they again have worked really hard, so we do thank them very much. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists. And just so you know, I was reminded what we're going to do is in terms of questions, because there's a lot of us, and sometimes we feel frustrated because certain questions keep coming up, and those are the ones that get picked. So our goal is, as you're listening and you have this burning question, please, we're going to ask you don't interrupt their presentation because they only have 10 minutes. Instead, just raise your hand, and then we're going to pass out an index card. Write it down. Depending on the number of questions you receive, again, our board will try to pick questions that represent different ideas, and again, that'll help move the conversation forward. So again, just raise your hand, we'll give you a card, write it down, and then at the end, after our panelists speak, I will say a few words, and during that time, they're going to collect the questions, and then also just sort them and figure out, based on our time, which questions we'll have the opportunity to address. So it's my pleasure to introduce our three panelists. We have Dr. Holly Willis, Larry Rosenstock, and Dr. Richard Sheehan. And I'm going to introduce them in order and then allow them to go ahead and speak. So first, Dr. Willis is a faculty member in the School of Cinematic Arts at the University of Southern California, where she also serves as Director of Academic Programs for the Institute of Multimedia Literacy and the Director of the Media Arts and Practice PhD program. The Institute is dedicated to studying new modes of teaching and learning in a digital culture for pre-K through 12th grade and higher education. The IML also hosts a large-scale online course for K-12 teachers to help them integrate new forms of media into their teaching, and a summer workshop series centered on the use of still images, video, and social media for teaching and learning. Then we have Larry Rosenstock, who is the CEO and founding principal of High Tech High, which is a network of 11 K-12 public charter schools in San Diego County. He is the dean of the High Tech High Graduate School of Education. He has taught carpentry in urban high schools in Boston and Cambridge, and was principal of Ringe School of Technical Arts of the Cambridge Ringe and Latin School. He's a member of the Massachusetts and U.S. Supreme Court bars. He served as attorney at the Harvard Center for Law and Education and was a lecturer at the Harvard Education Graduate School. He directed the Federal New Urban High School Project and was president of the Prince Charitable Fund. Larry and his work have been featured on programs such as Oprah, Newsweek, and Forbes. He is a winner of the Ford Foundation Innovations in State and Local Government Award and is an Ashoka Fellow and won the McGraw Prize in Education. Dr. Richard Sheehan is the superintendent of Glendale Unified, where I work. And we know that Glendale Unified in this area is a very high-performing school with over 26,000 students and has been recognized with many state and national awards. He holds his doctorate in educational leadership from USC, his master's from Azusa Pacific University, and a bachelor's from Cal State Fullerton. He began his career in education as a high school teacher 23 years ago. In Covina Valley, he was the athletic director and head football coach, winning a CIF championship and Coach of the Year. In addition, I know we have some football fans here. That was with Covina High School. He also was a principal at Northview High School and then director of K-12 curriculum and instruction in Covina Valley Unified. Then we stole him in Glendale, and he became Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services in 2007, and then in 2010 became our Superintendent. So again, we have a very distinguished panel, and I know you're excited to hear them.
Hi. Again, my name is Holly. I'm really delighted to be here. I'm going to frame my comments in the context of my work at USC. I'm getting some feedback. Oh, much better. Whereas I said, I teach at University, the Institute for Multimedia Literacy, and also our PhD program in media arts and practice. And I add that because I don't really have a lot of expertise in K-12 education or teacher education, but I think that what we're experiencing at USC, and I think what's also happening here at Occidental at the higher education level, is the recognition that students coming up into the undergraduate courses really need to have much more of a background in media literacy. And we're seeing this as a kind of broad scale, kind of spectrum of learning and teaching that needs to happen. In the context of USC also, and again I would say at many colleges and universities across the country, we are also engaged in very serious questions around whether what we're teaching is the right thing and whether what we're teaching in the right way. And we're really actively asking these questions across the university, and we're looking specifically at curriculum. Are the courses the right courses? If we understand multimedia literacy and the ability to communicate with images and networked scholarship to be foundational, are we teaching that? And if so, where? We're looking at it in terms of pedagogy. We are in a context where our faculty members are used to standing up in front of people and talking to a large group of students without much interaction or project-based learning. So we're thinking, is that really the way that you need to be teaching 21st century learners? We're also thinking about it in terms of faculty development. Are we able to provide resources and incentives to get our faculty members to really think about pedagogy? We're in a research institution where a lot of emphasis is not placed on teaching. And so we have this very grave problem in the context of education in that context. And we're also looking at it in the context of administrative issues and how do we talk about encouraging faculty to experiment with their teaching and with curriculum if we don't recognize that work in terms of tenure and promotion. So we have these major roadblocks in terms of how we understand education in the higher ed context. And at the same time, this incredible paradigm shift that we're all aware of, it's radically transforming how we share ideas, how knowledge gets produced, and how it gets circulated. So in the context of higher ed, we're asking these same questions, and I can sort of reflect back and think about it in the context of K-12 education and the incredible challenges that teachers face walking into classrooms and maybe recognizing that their students are dramatically different than they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. They're coming into classes with a host of skills and access to media that was just it's unprecedented. So I think that in terms of the way I come to this, it's thinking about that kind of backwards looking and trying to sort of reflect how do we create a kind of paradigm and learning ecology that kind of moves through. So I think in terms of, in addition to the radical paradigm shift, we're also seeing that the ways in which students learn is no longer about gathering information, it's much more about being able to access and assess and reflect on information, and then also to make work, to make media, to participate as active creators of media, and to do that in a sophisticated way. One of the arguments that we get at USC, especially with our program, which is housed in the School of Cinematic Arts, which is known for people like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, is that in teaching students to make critical videos or to make scholarly websites that were Disneyfying scholarship, that were making it look pretty and snazzy without really teaching core core skills around argument and reading and writing. And I would really argue that that's not true. And the other argument that we get is that our students come to us as digital natives, as students who are already so skilled in using social media and making videos. Why would we teach that in the scholarly context? I think that I answer my colleagues in two ways. One, they come to us using media but not understanding it critically, not being fully aware of its implications, its potentials. They're very naive often in terms of the impact and the power and the capacity for incredible damage as well as empowerment that the media presents to them. And the other reason is that I think we're at a moment where we're really reinventing scholarship as the circulation of knowledge and production of knowledge has changed so dramatically. We're at a moment where our students get to participate in reimagining not papers and books, but how you communicate ideas through the visual, through network connectivity, through collaboration, and through new modes of research that are empowered by tremendous computing power. So when I think about the context here at Occidental and the potential for a program to support K-12 teachers, I'm really struck by something that I found to be really important at USC, and that is an ecology of people in place who are already doing work. We were very lucky at USC to have lots of people in kind of small units that together combine to make this incredible network across the campus. And I see that here on this campus where you have incredible resources already in place. Marcia Schneering's group on the Scholarship and Technology is doing incredible work. The Center for Digital Learning and Research is already so engaged, has received Mellon funding and a kind of outside recognition of the power that this group has here on campus. You have postdoc fellows, I've met two of them, and they are extraordinary, and I would have them at my institute in a moment. So you have these kind of elements in place that I think begin to build an ecology that could support a really robust kind of community. And I look at this group too as well as a kind of extension of that ecology and a community that's devoted to thinking about these things in a serious and sophisticated way. I don't know if I've answered the question about the future of technology. I don't know if I've used my 10 minutes, but I think that there's just tremendous potential here to bring things together and to knit together a foundation for an incredible program. Thank you.
I want to begin by saying I agree with every single word you just said. So thank you. I have spent the last 35 years in public education, and my view of it is that it is our most precious public institution and our most least changed public institution. Our most precious because I think everybody recognizes that there's no other institution that gives you an opportunity to rise above social disadvantage as much as the potential of public education. I first did teach carpentry to juvenile hall kids and special ed kids right after law school. Never figured out why I went there, but basically I did that for 11 years at the height of GSAG, and Boston in the 70s was like Mississippi in the 60s. I did see babies in buses with bricks being thrown at them. And you know, we had Plessy, separate but equal, in the 1890s, we had Brown in the 1950s, together and equal, and I think nobody can deny that our schools are less together and less equal than they've ever been. So we have done several things that have marched us headlong into apartheid schooling. And this troubles me, obviously, greatly. Because I think as a society, we mispredict who can and who can't do what based on socioeconomic status. We mispredict based on ethnicity. We mispredict based on gender. We now have found a new way to mispredict, which is based on an overemphasis on standardized test scores. So a lot of the oxygen has been sucked out of the institution. I then was principal of the oldest public high school in the United States from the mid-1600s. What I would say about that was that every time somebody did something stupid, including me, over all those hundreds of years, they added another rule and never took any away. So I landed up somehow or other moving to California. Actually, I will confess, coming from the Northeast, I did have that blend of envy and disdain for Southern California, which it took me 4 minutes to dispose of. And then I was in the, I don't know if that's me or not, but I landed up creating public charter schools called High Tech High, because there was a dearth of H-1B visas, and there were a lot of folks in in San Diego. I'll mention one of them in particular, Erwin Jacobs of Qualcomm, if you know of him, that felt that there was no return on investment from investing in the school district, unfortunately, that they were not xenophobes about the dearth of H-1B visas. They loved the people they were bringing in from other countries. What about the kids from the other side of the track? And one thing led to another, and they said, let's start a school. How do we start a school? And I spoke to them about how to start a school. There's a few ways to create an in-district school or a quasi-autonomous school or a fully autonomous school, which is a charter. When I was principal at the high school back in Boston in '94, I remember being opposed to charters, like many people on my end of the spectrum might be, because I saw it as market segmentation leading to market atomization. And I remember somebody was coming to that community because that's a very high per pupil expenditure, and I told him I was not happy about charters, and he said, well, I want to have one here. And I said, I hope you get one. He said, how come? I said, pure Archimedes, my lever in here will be longer if you're out there. So when people say that charters threaten existing schools, I think maybe that's really okay, because I felt that when I was on the inside. Not threatening in the bad sense. Again, it comes back to this question of least change public institution. Obviously, I agree completely with everything that was said about what it's really about is, for kids, collaboration, appreciation of attention to other perspectives, initiatives, persistence, curiosity. This is basically what everybody needs. I'm here today in part because high-tech high selects kids based on a zip code-based lottery. This is what I took from DSEC. Okay, we have 109 zip codes in San Diego. We have an algorithm that basically we look at census data, what percent of kids reside in every zip code. The computer picks whatever percent of kids reside in every zip code. We don't know if they're special ed. We know nothing about them except that. So the demography is always reflective of the community of San Diego. And we focus in particular on college entrance and college completion. One of the great perks is that all employees' kids get in automatically. When we have 8,600 kids sadly applying for several hundred positions, that's great. My daughter, in the interest of full disclosure, went to high-tech high and said that she was determined to go to a college that was as close to high-tech high as possible, and she is a freshman at Oxy right now. And we just had dinner, and she was telling me about all her great teachers and how they reminded her of all those great, enthusiastic, engaging teachers that she had at high-tech high. So I love Oxy for that. I just wanted to say that. And I guess that I'll end because I think that the questions are really what's most important. By the way, our kids have pulled patents. They've published 64 books. It's really extraordinary. It is about production. They've made lots of films. It's it's about production. And I used to make documentaries for PBS, by the way. If you're focusing on production, you also have consumption. If you have consumption, you don't necessarily have production. If you have production, you get both. So it's not just working in schools, and I think we do need teachers working in schools, young people that come out of great schools like this. It's what kind of schools they're actually going to work in. And whether we like it or not, there's a lot of new schools being created. I think I teach the only class of 1,100 graduate schools of education in the United States today called New School Creation, which I teach at Berkeley. And I'll end by just saying that Dewey said the purpose of public education isn't to replicate society. The purpose of public education is to transform society. And I think that a lot of the ethos of this university, this college, is exactly that. And it incubates a lot of young people who go off in an effort to sort of change the world. And Jefferson described it in a slightly different way when he said the purpose of public education isn't to serve the public. The purpose of public education is to create a public, and he did create in 1820, the first non-sectarian public university on the planet. So he had some flaws, but that was not one of them. But I want to end with my grandmother, Esther, who was an immigrant from Austria, and the first female taxi medallion owner in 1936. She was 4'10", and most of the brains in my family lineage flow from her. But she said to me one day, Larry, I will just remember, there's two types of people in this world, those who think there's two types of people, and those who don't.
These are very tough acts to follow. And I'm very honored to be on a panel with them. The way I would like to start is have all the Glendale teachers that are in the audience raise their hand. Dr. Tarosian, she's the former principal at Glendale High, and one of her statements is students who had graduated from Occidental automatically had a leg up because what they would bring to the school, not only academically, but just the whole picture. They were willing to go the extra mile, willing to volunteer to sponsor clubs, bring new ideas. And so we have always had a very good working relationship with Occidental. And I have to say, the people from Occidental are a joy to work with. And so, unfortunately, I agree with what he said. I mean, we are a public institution, and we still take a summer break so we can go harvest in the fields. I mean, that's truly where we are as an institution. And so, we are trying to change things. We are looking to the future. I think we're in an awesome opportunity with the Common Core standards coming. One area that I would love to see Occidental do is embrace the Common Core and the next generation assessments and produce teachers that excel at this. Because it is truly looking at education in a very different way, a lot based on critical thinking. I like to think we are fairly progressive as a district. We have created a business roundtable because we have access to some amazing companies in Glendale. We used to meet with Unum and Nestle and Walt Disney and get their input on what they're looking for in their future employees. And Unum actually has an assessment where they look at critical thinking. And we have quite a few teachers here from Crescenta Valley. Crescenta Valley's, one of their instructional focuses is critical thinking. There's an institute up in the Berkeley area that specializes in critical thinking and has come down and done extensive work at CV and several other of our schools. I expect high schools in the next 5 to 7 years to look drastically different. And one of the areas that I would look at Occidental is there's a lot about online learning, but we don't have teachers that have any experience in online teaching. And I know USC has done extensive work. I sit on the Dean's Advisory, Superintendent's Advisory, in the Education Department, and they have started a master's in teaching, and they now have 1,500 new students that it's all done online, but it's done, they now reach across all 50 states, and they have been very aggressive in this field. Okay? Well, we had the benefit of having one of the teachers, and in talking to the teacher, they're still experiencing hiccups. And I know we have some of our administrators and teachers are teaching in the program, but it's a learning process. And so if they could create a specialty in online instruction, that would be hugely beneficial for us. Another thing is I was just up at the Superintendent Symposium up in Monterey this past week, and Michael Folan out of Toronto spoke. And we talked about all the technology, and we want our kids to be 21st century learners, but he did a good job. One of his comments is, a fool is a fool, and a fool with a tool is still a fool. Okay, and so just because we bring technology in, okay, the most important component, and I have actually heard this about High Tech High, is the teachers. Okay, and if we don't have the foundation of the excellent teachers, the technology doesn't do anything. And so what I would ask is that as we bring technology in, okay, we are coming to the generation where the digital natives are reaching the college level, but how are they using it effectively? Okay, and we look at, okay, sorry, digging for my cell phone, okay, if you think about this is the most powerful computer some of our kids have. And you think of just where we have evolved just in the last 10 years. And it's truly amazing. And so that goes back to, we can never be as current as we want to with technology, and that goes back to the importance of the teacher. And good, solid teaching transforms everything. And so very much our responsibility is to be producing kids that are ready for a global economy, because we're already there with the global economy. As superintendent, I am too keenly aware of what's happening in the economies in China and India, because that has a direct correlation on the money I'm going to receive as superintendent. Because right now, China owns half our debt. And if they start to slow down, okay, it has a ripple effect on us. And so we offer 7 different languages and dual immersion programs. We want to make sure that our students have the opportunity to be prepared going into the workforce that we don't even understand right now. Okay, because now it's estimated students that graduate from high school will change jobs at least 7 times in their career. And that's just because of where we are globally with technology. And so yes, we want them to be up on the most current, but the most important part is that they use it effectively, and that's through good teaching. So now the other comment I would make is we're always compared globally. Look at our English language arts, our mathematics. One of the things I would love to see is for our teachers to have better math foundation. Okay, why is it okay in the United States for us to have teachers say, well, it's math, I get why you don't get it. It's okay, some of us struggle with math. If you go to the Far East, I guarantee you in Japan and China, you don't have anyone telling them it's okay not to be very good in math. In the West, okay, we value reading, English language arts, so you aren't going to hear any of us say, well, it's okay if you don't read okay. But yet it's okay in mathematics. Okay, and so in my frame, I look at it, and this is not a criticism on anyone, well, it's criticism on the system, is we don't produce our elementary teachers with enough math background. And so one of the things I would look for is the requirements, and this is a state responsibility, but you're looking at running a first-class teacher prep program. If we had elementary teachers that were stronger in mathematics, we would have stronger students in mathematics. And that's, like I said, I'm not trying to criticize anyone. This goes across all the districts. I've worked in 4 different districts, and that goes across all the districts. And so our expectations, the best thing about Glendale is we have high expectations for everybody. And you walk into that district and you feel it. And we have outstanding teachers, and we need to continue to hire outstanding teachers because that is the most important piece. So I'll end with that.
I'm going to wrap up the panel with some personal comments. I'm, again, joining the panel to help moderate, but also to make that connection between Occidental and, again, as a practitioner out as in the public school in Glendale. So as I do speak and try to pull a couple key ideas together, please remember questions at this point that you've heard our 3 panelists. Go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like a note card, so that we'll pick it up, so that way we can get our questions going. Again, so we're not taking the questions yet, we're going to field the questions from you. Again, I was very honored to be part of this panel. I know there's very, very talented people out there, and I think the one reason that I was encouraged to participate was my connection to the college. As a student, as a teacher, as a master teacher, my master teacher is currently here, my professors are here. It's because there is that connection, there is that passion, there is that belief that this is a wonderful place that prepares wonderful teachers. And I think a common message that we've heard over and over was the critical role of an excellent teacher. that the tools of the future, many of which haven't been developed yet, need to be in the hands of a teacher who uses it wisely. And we know that the foundations that are provided here through the core program as well as through the credential program help to ensure quality teachers. In my job, I work at Horace Mann Elementary, and our school is a school that we would look at in terms of socioeconomic concerns or challenges. We have currently about 90% of our students receiving free or reduced lunch. And it's a challenge. It's really hard work there. So how do we bridge the current realities to the kinds of schools we want to see and that we know in order to be competitive in this global society? And I think about recently, I know this one, I can't forget the student. It's a student who recently lost her mom to cancer. She lost her father a couple years ago. And so right now she has no one. She has some extended family, but she right now is an excellent student. She's on her honor roll, she's doing great. And I think in terms of what is it going to take to help make sure that student gets into college? Because right now, the odds are, based on socioeconomic status and the lack of no home support at this point, how are we going to make sure that happens? How do we make sure students at our school have an equal chance to succeed as students who attend a private elite school? And it's hard work. And I think it boils down to this idea of a great teacher. And fortunately in my role, I'm like a reading coach. I've been involved in studies looking at professional development. So professional development has really been the key part of my job. And I always think, okay, what is it? What qualities make an excellent, incredible teacher versus a good or average teacher? It's just a burning question I have. And the more I thought of it, I thought it boils down to one idea. And I thought it's because they care. They care about what they teach, so they have that content knowledge. They care about how they teach, so they're experts in the delivery of that. And they care about their students. They're willing to fight for those students and never give up. And they care about being the personal best they can. So it's never good enough, and they're always improving. So I think in terms of that passion is what makes that critical difference. But it's not just about they care and they make learning fun. It's they're going to push that student to succeed and not let them fail. And I think in terms of our school, we've seen teachers who come who have wonderful ideas but have lacked classroom management. And they are often ones that do leave. There are other teachers who have good management but have perhaps issues with lesson design. There are some basic, essential qualities that do need to be in place to pull all this together. That's why we say it's both a skill and an art. There are many, many, many challenges, and we feel strongly that the program at a small liberal arts college, one that has extremely high expectations, can really make that difference. I think back, why did I choose to go to Occidental? So I was the first person in my family, in my mom's side of the family, to go to college. And fortunately, I had choices. Why did I go with any job? And then I went on to the Oxy Credential program, and then I thought, why did I feel that that program was so excellent? And there was 3 points that I saw from Linda Darling Hammond that said 3 critical components of effective teacher education programs include a tight coherence and integration among courses and between coursework and clinical work. Our program has always had that fieldwork component, so it was connection of theory and practice. There's extensive and intensely supervised clinical work. So you're getting supervision in the real world context, and that you're challenged to be better. And that you have closer proactive relationships with schools that serve diverse learners effectively and develop a model of good teaching. And you can see there are people here, many from Glendale. There are certain relationships in the local schools. When they could, they would snatch up Occidental teachers. Because it was just like, if I mentioned that I was from Occidental, that provided me an open door, and people were actually interested. I had one offer that said, sign the contract now, we'll place you later, just because the reputation of Occidental College. This is a critical time for the college. I know that they're rethinking their role in terms of, as a liberal arts college, how are they distinct from the proliferation of online courses that you can get your degree and it costs a lot less? who is going to spend the amount of money it takes to go to Occidental. And you look at the type of student that goes there, it's going to be a critical thinker, a person who loves learning, who's willing to develop skills that will be applicable to a variety of contexts. I mean, you think about it, when you exit with a philosophy major, and then all of a sudden their senior year is like, what am I going to do? But they have the skills in place that, guess what, they can do anything, pretty much. And so I think, again, the role that we've had here is connecting theory and practice. And as a liberal arts college, we need to think, what are the real world implications? What career will I have after I spend this amount of money going here? And when we look at it in terms of the mission of Occidental College, there are a couple key things that keep coming up, and I think that is so intrinsically tied into what a quality teacher is. In the mission, it prepares us to be leaders. And we know, as far as being a good teacher, that take on different roles, they're teacher leaders. There's a deep commitment to the public good. And I would challenge you to think of any other profession that you can say that there is that commitment to the public good as more than a teacher. And we have, as we said, there are many strengths already in place at Occidental. And it's important that we keep looking to that and building on it. And so, in closing, and I did see some questions coming down, so that's a good thing. I did want to say, I read in the Oxy's vision statement, and I thought, wow, this is what it's about. And Occidental needs to have a role in preparing those teachers for tomorrow. They said, this type of education here at Occidental is accomplished in an intimate residential college where teaching matters, and where faculty develop close working relationships with their students. The dyad between teacher and student is at the heart of everything we do. We will dedicate ourselves to strengthening that bond as the centerpiece of an Occidental college. So that critical role of that teacher-student relationship in this intellectually stimulating, innovative school is what we're talking about. And we hope that we can see that commitment to further the teacher education program and build on what's critically important. I'm going to read the first question to our panel, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. And I think in terms of, don't feel obligated to answer, but if you feel that this one applies to you, please jump in. What would a technology-rich teacher preparation program look like?
Well, we have a graduate school of education, and we have a credentialing program at High Tech High. So a technologically rich one would be one in which you are basically using various media to collaborate with your peers, in which you're doing action research during the day, especially in a credentialing program, because you're, in a BITSA program, you're basically teaching at the same time at some level. So it would be the use of various forms of technology, essentially towards collaboration, I think would mostly be it, rather than anything else in my point of view. That would be the quick, easy answer.
I think from my perspective, what I would add is maybe thinking about it and drilling down a little bit further to think about the core literacies that you would want those teachers to be able to communicate to their students. So the issues around how to access information, how to assess information, how to create with media, how to reflect on that media, and then how to kind of be active participants in a public and economic and social world. And to really, again, to go back to what you were saying, thinking about this process as an ethical contribution to helping students become full participants in a 21st century culture, where everything from the community to the social interaction to economic interactions is fully mediated by technology.
And I just want to add one thing, because given this, because that's exactly right. I mean, I know this is kind of a striking statement today. It's actually, the particular content is less important as time goes on, I think, but the learning how to learn skills are really growing, and the content focus, the idea of transmitting inert content is, I think, falling a little bit by the side. Because we have access, kids have access to everything. I mean, you want them to know that Reconstruction was after the Civil War, not after the Depression. I get that.
Well, Partnership, lab, or charter school?
Okay. Well, it's great. It's actually a lot easier having done school reform for 20 years and new school creation for 15. Sadly, it's a lot easier to start a new school than to transform an existing school. The reason it's so difficult to transform an existing school is because of the culture. It's very, very difficult to change the culture of the school. But to answer it very quickly, under California law, you can apply and get a charter, and there's a lot of people doing it. And I guess some people make charters that are not very good, right? So the mere fact that it's a charter does not make it good at all. But for those of us who are trying to have a constructivist pedagogy, and in particular are selecting kids blindly with no transcript, nothing like that, and we're not running test prep operations, then it's kind of exciting time to be doing it. So, and there's a proliferation of a lot of young people starting schools. We have 572 employees now. I just started 12 years ago. I have of the 11 schools that we have, the average age of the principals of my schools are 32. Okay, one person just turned 30, and she's really glad because she was a principal at 26, and she was embarrassed to tell people that. And they're just fantastic young people, just like the people that you have here. And they're looking for, again, as I said, it's not just being credentialed to teach, but teach where. And we need better schools, and I think that's hopefully working with districts, and never in opposition to districts, by the way. So that's, I'm not going to get into how to do it, but if anyone wants to know, we can give you far greater detail than that.
As far as Glendale Unified, we're always looking for partnerships. We work closely with USC, partly because I went there, and then Connected. And so a lot of it has to do with the connectedness. USC has had doctoral students come in and study some of our programs, give us suggestions on how to make them more successful. We would love to partner with Occidental, create lab schools, allow student teachers to come in and out, even for short periods of time. Okay? It's very beneficial for us as well as it is for Occidental. And so we would be very open to a partnership. We're currently trying to partner with as many of private industry. We're currently trying to partner with Panasonic. Panasonic bought Sanyo and has cornered the market on 3D technology. And so we are trying to bring 3D technology and write curriculum so our kids come out of high school with a 3D background. And so that is just one example. The benefit of Glendale is our location. So we have kids at Crescenta Valley, Clark Magnet School, are constantly working with the JPL people, robotics. Our robotics is the fastest thing growing in our elementary schools. And so we are very much into real-world application as well as strong foundation with our teachers.
What are the advantages of a school like Occidental in the area of teacher training?
For me, it's easy. It's proximity. Because but seriously, I mean, it's interesting. We had a tragedy up at CD last year, and we leaned on Palo Alto because they had gone through something similar. Well, Stanford's across the street. So when we were talking to them, they talked about, well, we partnered with Stanford. We partnered with Stanford. We partnered with Stanford. Well, to be honest, Occidental's the closest university we could partner with. And so it just lends it to a great working relationship and a lot of potential.
And I would just say that the pedagogy of Oxy is such that it approximates the types of teachers that I think the country really needs. You know, the size of it, this whole idea of persistence and curiosity, and you don't see that in a lot of institutions. That's what I really cherish about this place. We need more teachers coming out of education environments like this.
And I would just reiterate the idea of the existing infrastructure that's already in place here and really leveraging that to make something a fuller foundation. I think is a really powerful argument for doing something like that here. And I think also thinking about the possibility of redefinition at this moment and the potential to take a leadership role in really defining something that doesn't really exist anywhere else. There isn't this kind of teacher training anywhere. As far as I know, I'm not an expert again in this area, but from what I understand from colleagues, it just doesn't exist. People who are really ready to walk into the classroom of the 21st century and be fully able to teach, it would be an amazing thing. So.
And I just wanted to add, as far as looking at the strategic plan for Occidental, and you start reading some of the qualities that they want to foster in terms of the school's vision for itself. You read that, and then you read the Common Core Standards. The Common Core Standards are designed to prepare students for college and career. And the type of inquiry, the type of critical thinking, the type of problem solving, the ability to defend ideas is embedded in a liberal arts college and within Occidental's own vision. So that type of thinking is already embedded. And we're preparing people for a world that yet doesn't exist. I mean, I was actually thrilled. I can remember writing my lesson plans, and when somebody had a typewriter that had one of those little balls that would erase my letters, I was excited. We used to have to take those little mimeograph things and scratch off the back to erase errors. Okay, and I think, wow, I guess I consider myself part of the, I don't know, the old timers. But yet, I have the mindset that I could learn that. I could learn this. I would be ready to try whatever might come down the line. But again, that's in that idea of that inquiry. And I think another advantage is that because of the small size, that personal relationship is critical. I know many, many times, like in our coursework, I mean, there was no getting away of not being prepared. I actually found my educational coursework the most challenging because as an English major, I could sometimes get away with not reading something or just being a little bit more quiet. I could not get away with not having an excellent lesson plan because the kids taught me a lesson for not being prepared. So it was challenging. You were practicing and you were constantly reflecting. And I think that's what makes a difference. I've seen many teachers come to our school that haven't had that guidance, haven't been guided through that self-reflection. And so therefore, it's hard for them to make the adjustments needed to meet the needs of the students. So I think that ability to be critical of yourself, ready to learn, being open to looking at data, that's incredible. And the ability to carefully place students. I mean, I've had, again, not from Occidental, where it's like, okay, just place the student with somebody who's willing to take a student teacher. And the ability to create a partnership with local districts, and I know there's principals here who would love to take that step, is that they would love to have a student who's excited about teaching, who's passionate. If you come to this college and you're willing to look at becoming a teacher, you have a passion for teaching because your parents, your family, your friends are probably saying, why are you going there, paying that kind of money, and you want to become a teacher. There is something intrinsic about being an excellent teacher. So being able to place students, not just with somebody who's willing to be their master teacher, but an excellent teacher, and making sure I am connected to learn from the best. That is a huge advantage. And I think, again, I hope that that's something that we do look at promoting and fostering.
I have a burning need to say, I want to create a little air between preparing teachers and credentialing teachers, because the Carnegie Commission 100 years ago decided English, history, math, and science. And why not archaeology, anthropology, anatomy, and astronomy, right? And they also decided that biochem physics would be taught in alphabetical order. The consequences is 90% of American kids take physics. When the rest of the Western world has physics like high-tech high does, we do conceptual physics in the 9th grade and mathematical physics in the 12th. So it's important to remember that a lot of teachers teach in a lot of environments do not need to be credentialed. Okay, there are some environments that require it. so I just say that there's a limiting factor to everything we're talking about here. It was like my son just graduated from Berkeley a few weeks ago. He majored in physics. So he was 19 when he decided to major in physics. When he's 42, he can only teach physics. When he's 56, he can only teach physics. So we get inculcated as teachers, and we can only teach the thing that we picked when we were 19. There's something wrong with that. So I just want to say that it needs to be broader than merely credentialing.
We want to start talking about the state and problems. Okay,
That was the country, not the state.
but I'll stay and talk to anyone about the state and the issues we face.
All right. I know that we do want to honor your time and make sure that, I know there's more questions, and there's a couple questions, honestly, that none of our panelists would be able to answer because they're more towards the college. But we want to make sure that we thank you very much for attending. Your presence shows a lot for your commitment to education and your belief in the power of excellent teaching. So again, we thank you for coming. We hope that this is not the end of this conversation, that it will continue, and we hope that you will be joining us for the reinstatement of the program.
And
So,
can I say one quick thing, sort of procedurally? I'm going to take the questions that we didn't get around to, I'm going to put them on the blog, and so if anybody, and on Facebook, so if anybody wants to come and have the conversation online, it's going to be available there so that people can do that. Also, earlier Anne had said that ALOED had a proposal. We don't really have a proposal. What we have are some recommendations and some thoughts. And I have the first section that sort of talks about general recommendations and general thoughts about technology and education. And those will be on the table over there. You can pick them up, look through it, and we'd love to have that be part of the conversation also. Again, it's on the blog, which again is tigersteach.wordpress.com. And all of our thoughts are there. And we'd love to have you join the conversation by including your thoughts there also. Again, thank you.
thank you.